With well over 50 vendors, the trade show at Colonial Days is also drawing a crowd. Brittany Matika introduces us to a craftsman who keeps coming back.
This year's trade show has 60 different indoor booths with a variety of vendors from skincare to bathtubs. Tom Williams has been bringing in his handcrafted leather belts and custom buckles to the fair for the past 4 years.
Just judging from the first day, we've been actually a little bit busier than previous years. So I'm very happy with that, to see the crowds coming out to the fair. We're seeing quite a few of the people from local folks from Lloyd here, but we're also seeing a lot of people from surrounding areas, because there's a huge rural rural component to this show.
The leather worker visits 40 different trade shows every year, allowing him to personally show his products to customers and build relationships, much like first-time exhibitor Amy Smart.
It's been so far a fantastic experience, getting to talk to people, getting to interact with them, show them my product and what I have to offer. It's been really good.
We have a lot of a huge customer base in this area, so we like to keep serving our customers. So we've been around for 27 years, so most of our business is repeat business. So every few years someone says, oh, I'll maybe buy a new belt, and the belt guy is here again.
The trade show is included in the gate admission and is open 11:30 a.m. until 10 p.m. during Colonial Days. Brittany Matika, Newcap News.
There are also plenty of agriculture-related events happening during this year's fair, and there was no shortage of horses showing off their talents. Eza Bashir has more.
Collective counter, please.
The Light Horse Show kicked off this morning's lineup of activities with prize money up for grabs in each class.
Competitors coming to town to show their light horses in different events in Western and English classes.
There are numerous egg events set up to showcase the animals in their competitive sides.
Agriculture, there'll be heifer shows, horses. There's lots of heavy horses here this year.
Many of the participants have been here before and are accompanied by experienced riders of all ages.
How long have you been riding?
Since I was 4. We've been here probably the 4 years. If she's been here, we've been here for 4 years. Yeah, we showed before, like a long time ago, and so it's nice that it's carrying on and she's doing it. We like coming.
Another event that took place this morning was the draft horse show that displayed the horses front and center.
We have both halter classes where you show your animal on halter for the judge, and he judges the conformation of the animal. And then we also have, in the evenings, we've got hitch classes where we hook him up to a wagon and we drive him around, and he judges them on that.
The horse shows, along with the rest of the ag activities, will continue throughout the rest of the week. Eza Bashir, Newcap News.
And Lloydminster residents are enjoying everything sweet that Colonial Days has to offer, from the refreshments to the food. But for those trying to lose weight, it's a challenge to pick and choose your temptations. As Josh Ryan explains in this week's Healthy Living, there's no reason to feel guilty if you plan your indulgences ahead of time.
Weight watching is difficult when surrounded by so many delicious choices, which makes now a good time to use as a cheat day.
You have to treat yourself with some carnival food once a year, right? It's once a year. Go out and indulge just a little bit.
However, many people make the mistake of changing their eating habits heading into and during an event like Colonial Days.
So they won't eat as much. They won't maybe have balanced meals leading up to that event. And what that does is it sends our brain into this, I always call it the hangry zone, where you're not logical anymore.
Somerville suggests choosing your particular treat before going out.
What is the treat that you're really going to enjoy and savor, rather than just kind of needing to try everything at the event?
People often turn to more rigorous exercise afterwards, as gaining weight despite walking all day is quite common at festivals. However, trying to burn all of those calories at once is not only ineffective, but more likely to result in overexertion.
To try and do something all at once, try to get rid of all the fat you just gained, all the calories you just gained, it's just pointless.
Weinkoff says if you are going to go for a workout after the fair, give the food some time to digest.
I personally say an hour. Yeah, you need to have that all settle down for at least an hour before you go do any cardio.
And making these choices will ultimately result in a more pleasant Colonial Days experience.
If you're eating it in a way of kind of intuitive mindfulness, then you will enjoy it a lot more and you'll feel a lot more satisfied with a smaller portion.
Josh Ryan, Newcap News.
Finding the balance on the family farm is always a challenge. In this week's Agriculture Report, Gerard Lampow meets a bison producer who is putting in the work and reaping the rewards.
I read an article about these bison. I got kind of excited about it as being the lazy man's cow.
20 years on, and the shifting winds of time have sharpened the sensitivities of Ken Farkash, who switched from cattle to North America's largest wild animal, the bison. His land is good for grain and livestock, with some 1,500 acres dedicated to bison. He admits they've learned a lot over the years.
Just basically barbed wire, 5 strands of barbed wire, the top wire being about 5 feet. They respect the barbed wire. The page wire they would tend to rub on and they'll crawl underneath.
Farkash says bison are not labor intensive and the less you do the better, and you don't have to be out there calving. He says they're happy with what they have accomplished, but some of their mistakes brought them close to giving up.
2 years ago, we had one of our staff didn't secure the gate in the feedlot, and we had a whole pen of finished bison bulls get out, and we wondered whether we'd ever get them back in.
That's about $80,000 worth of bison running loose, so they were happy when the last one wandered back home. Animal handling was critical to getting them all back, and it's part of his do's and don'ts.
Bison's a little different. Sometimes you have to be patient. If they want to stop and think about things a little bit, you just stop and you give them some time.
And why not? You're talking about an animal that weighs 2,000 pounds. Farkash has weathered BSE and the drought of the early 2000s. He has about 7 staff members and has moved the operation from calving to finishing animals and is aiming to grow the herd to 400. With stable prices, he says it's a solid business.
It's a kind of business now that I would say that will buy the farm.
Bison produces lean meat, so it has a shorter cooking time and is craved for its flavor. Overall, he credits good management, safety, and still having fun. And he's thankful for good relations with his wife and family.
I want to manage for success and for enjoyment. And, you get all those things in the right order, and it can be a lot of fun.
Gerard Lampow, Newcap News.
This is Newcap Sports.
Well, it wasn't a great year for many teams who played out of the Civic, on the ice at least. But for one team playing on the Civic's concrete base, it's been tremendous. And Lance Phillips was at the final practice before the Extreme began arguably their biggest playoff series in recent memory.
With ice installation at the Civic just over a week away, the Extreme hit the facility's concrete for the final time Wednesday, with a weekend series against the Lakeland Heat looming. The two teams begin the best-of-3 series Friday in Bonnyville, and describing the attitude of Lloydminster's players can be done with one word: confident.
I think the boys are really uplifted, and I think they're really pumped up, and they expect big things this weekend. I expect it too, and I really hope we do well.
Going into the weekend, coming off of a 2-0 sweep, everybody's fired up, and especially beating Cold Lake for the first time in a while, everybody's just amped up and ready to go for this weekend.
The Heat produce a far more formidable task than the Warriors did, meaning the Extreme need to be at their best. But Murray hopes the RMLL's playoff format gives his team an added edge.
They've had a 2-week layoff now, so I hope that they're a little docile, but I imagine they're going to be fully ready to go, and we got to bring a full effort for sure.
I expect them to play twice as hard as what they normally would. They're coming off playing us in a loss, so they're going to be fired up and ready to take it back, and we're just not going to give it to them.
Well, they're a pretty well-rounded team, so they have players who really stand out, and we have to play a lot harder defense on them.
Lloydminster's offense has been a bright spot for most of the season, but the argument could be made it's the defense spurning the team to wins of late. Defense that needs to be in top form if it expects to compete against a Heat team that averaged just over 11 goals per game this season.
From the first game to now, we're really worked on locking down guys and not letting them get away from us. So we're really man-to-man now, so we know who the top shooters are, so we can kind of crunch down on those guys and stop them from scoring the goals.
Lance Phillips, Newcap Sports, Lloydminster.